Hello, Terrell, owner of Evolution Movement. So I created this platform to bring people in the community together with different entrepreneurs and influencers that are making a difference in our neighborhood. So I'm joined today with the ladies of Brooklyn Mavens. How you doing?
Hey.
So thank you for joining. So I'm a huge fan. I've actually been following Brooklyn Mavens for a little bit. My dad actually told me about your page a few years ago. You're like my go-to for like date nights, or if I'm just looking for different events in Brooklyn. I'm from Brooklyn, so I've been following you guys for a while, and I really want to bring you on just so you could tell your story, like where you're from, and why you guys started and how you guys started with Brooklyn Mavens.
Yeah, so my name's Lauren. I am from Prospect Heights, Brooklyn, lived here my whole life. Um, and I mean, Merlin and I, so just a little bit background. Merlin and I went to high school together. We both went to Morrow. And then we also were in college together. So we went to Penn State and we were roommates all 4 years. And so after we graduated, we both like moved to other states and then we decided to come back in 2016. And from there, like we initially started out as BK fashion mavens. Um, and we wanted to highlight our fashion and the fashion of other like, Brooklynites. But then we realized after about a year that's not what we wanted to do. We wanted to focus more holistically on Brooklyn because we noticed that Brooklyn becoming very popular around that time, and like everybody was just going to the same area. So Williamsburg, like focusing on like downtown Brooklyn, just like all the touristy places. And so we thought it would be beneficial for us to highlight Brooklyn from our perspective as natives and showcase all that Brooklyn has to offer because it is such a huge borough, and to support local businesses while also doing that.
Yes, yes. I mean, that's what really drew me in because the same thing. Like, I mean, I follow a lot of pages that talk about Brooklyn, but it's usually the same areas, and it's usually the areas that I'm not around the most. I grew up here in Flatbush, so I'm used to being like a lot of the stuff. There are a lot of places that you go are places that I've seen or like I've heard of, and it made me like, all right, I want to check it out now. So, thank you for that, and I feel like it's a real for people that actually live here, it's a refreshing to see pages like yours because it's different than the other pages. Like when people just go to the like Williamsburg or downtown area, it's like not everybody goes there, So
Yeah, and I also think the cool part about it, even though like we don't go there, we can expose like actual places that we may want to visit, but also people who come to like Williamsburg and Bushwick and let them know that there are other parts in Brooklyn that they need to explore.
yes, yes. What would you tell yourself from when you first started and about now, like where you're at now, and like what would you tell yourself as you started this journey?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, I guess, well, just like cliche, like, oh, I wouldn't change a thing because I wouldn't like learn, right? But I feel like, if we knew at first, like, how big the brand was going to be or like the actual potential of it, like, I kind of wish we could started from the Brooklyn Mavens, I guess. Because like you said, a lot of people try to do what we do. And some of them may have like done like bigger things and grown faster. So I feel like maybe we could have started from there, but also social media has changed, so probably a little bit different then. But yeah, maybe if we actually like knew what we wanted to do, but the actual like growth and our story probably wouldn't be the same if we just started there.
Lauren, what would you say?
What would I do differently?
Yes. Well, not do differently, but what would you tell yourself, your younger self, when you first started out?
Dang, what was I gonna say? Well, that the sky's the limit one. I think that when we first started this, I don't even know if we thought it would get as big as it is. And I think that even throughout our growth from when we started in 2016, I think like even now today, I feel like very optimistic of the future and like how big this brand can grow and how we can impact people. So I think just to keep it pushing. I mean, I guess it's hard to say keep it pushing because we are still like pushing from there.
Yeah.
But just to be open minded and try new things, and to just keep dreaming bigger. Really.
So, what would you say would be the toughest part of the journey and like the most gratifying part at this point?
So I say the toughest part would probably be trying to balance building the brand and doing all the things that it comes with actually building a business, with actually balancing other things in life. Like having a 9 to 5, being an entrepreneur, personal things. I think the most gratifying part the first thing that comes to mind is actually like the impact of the brand. So like knowing that businesses are actually like leveraging from what we post, they're getting a lot of people coming in, we're sharing their stories, and the fact of like through the actual platform, not only do they get that, but I generally like actually love that we have partnerships and relationships with like the owners themselves. Like it's actually like cool to go into like a shop or a cafe or a restaurant, like actually know the owner. So like the actual brand is very genuine. But yeah, I love that. I love like going down Flatbush being like, hey,
Yes.
I think I pretty much the same as mom. I think it's really hard to try to be that entrepreneur and also work your 9 to 5. Like you always hear these stories about people who do both, and it's like grind. But grinding can be very tiring as well. And you also still want to have a social life. You sometimes hear about people who cut off everything and don't have as many friends or lost some connections with family because they really hyper focus on their business, which isn't bad, but it's also just really hard to balance. Like, what do you really focus on and what's important at that moment? And I do think like the impact is very gratifying, especially when like we are all normal people, but sometimes when you walk down the block, it seems like, oh my God, Brooklyn Mavens, like, I really love your platform. I just love what you guys do. And here I am just sitting at home trying to just get things out and, connect with other brands. But to hear someone who follows us say how much it's impacted them or just love it so much, it makes what we do worthwhile. So, it's really, it feels really good. And like Merlin said, connecting with these businesses, having a personal relationship with them, is also gratifying.
So, being Brooklyn natives, I always like to ask anybody I meet that's from Brooklyn, like, how do you think the neighborhood has changed? Like, the neighborhood or the neighborhoods that you're around has changed for the better or for the well, both better and worse. I mean, I think there are certain aspects. I mean, I grew up in Flatbush. I still live in Flatbush now. So, I think there's certain parts of being like a little more gentrified that's actually better for the neighborhood. But there's certain parts that isn't, I guess, because you're losing somewhat of the culture. For example, I'm a personal trainer, I'm a fitness coach. So when I grew up in this neighborhood, there weren't any gyms. Like there were nowhere to really work out. But now on like Flatbush and Church, there's 4 gyms that you could walk to within 2 blocks. So it's like it's a good thing because obviously people are working out more if there's this many gyms. But then also the part of me of like seeing commercial gyms here instead of seeing like local people open their own gyms. It's that part of it. It's probably not as good. So what do you think is like better, or have you seen that much of a change? I mean, I'm guessing even from when you first started, because COVID has changed a lot, especially when it comes to businesses in Brooklyn. How do you see how have you seen the change within these last few years?
I think with like COVID specifically, a lot of businesses have closed. So like Merlin and I would go back to content that we created before COVID, and it's like, well, that's gone. Even within this year, there's so many Black businesses that have closed. Basquiat's Bottle. I feel like there's like other businesses that have closed that I can't think of off the top of my head. But so, I mean, I've definitely seen the changes, especially within the neighborhood of Prospect Heights. I always felt like Prospect Heights was still considered like the bougie neighborhood, but even from like when I was in high school till now, there's been a lot of changes. for better and, like you said, for worse. I mean, it sucks that with these gentrifications and changes and everything happening, people can't afford to live in certain neighborhoods. They've been priced out of it. So I think that's the negative. But then, like in Prospect Heights, we have like 4 supermarkets, and so like that's really great. I think that within this neighborhood, you don't have to leave to like enjoy Brooklyn. Like you can literally go to a bar, 333's right there, so you can party if you want. There's a plethora of restaurants. There's like things to do within walking distance. So I think that's nice, right? To have things right at your disposal. I just think that everyone should have the ability to enjoy them. And not just with gentrification, the economy sucks right now, so everything is
Yeah,
expensive. So, like, even wanting to enjoy something in your neighborhood, it might cost 40, $50 just to join a bespoke gym class. But I don't think that should be, that shouldn't even be a thing, because why does it cost so much? But, it's all a domino effect. Everything
yeah,
affects each other. So if the economy's going up, it needs to be as expensive, and then it means only certain people can enjoy it. So, but then you find that these elevated experiences are only available in certain neighborhoods. So I don't know. Like I think everyone should have accessibility for certain things, but I don't know what that solution is.
yeah. No, it's tough. I'm personally looking to open my own facility too here for as far as like classes and everything, and it's tough because it's like as you said, the prices of everything is up. So for you to get where you want to be, you got to charge up a little bit more. So it is. I mean, it's tough, and it's just that's everywhere. That's whether you're in Brooklyn or Manhattan. That's pretty much everywhere. So I think that is the tough part right now, is just figuring out the balance
Yeah,
of it.
I don't think there's like a perfect answer to it, as
Yeah.
far as what that balance is. But like it's nice to have things like we don't have back in the day. We used to have to go to Manhattan all the time to enjoy.
Yes.
Now with Brooklyn, we have so much you don't have to leave the borough. Like I hate leaving Brooklyn. Sometimes I have to
I
force myself to go to Manhattan, but so I think it's nice, but it's just with all that comes certain things where I just feel like everyone should have the availability to access it.
Yes, I agree. I mean, I also had a guest that he owns like a cafe here in Flatbush, and it's like I like to see. Obviously, I like to see people like from the area still there creating their own business because they keep the culture. There's a lot of like culture here, especially in Flatbush, like Caribbean culture. So I like to see that. But at the same time, as you said, there are tons of other restaurants that weren't here when I was growing up. Like for us to go to a
Mm-hmm.
restaurant was like a big deal, like because we had to go to you had to go somewhere, go downtown or so it's like now it's just like I could just walk to a restaurant, a nice restaurant, sit down, enjoy, see people that I know, like so that part it's tough because it's a little bit it is both right now. And I always like to ask this too. So if someone that is might be interested in starting a page like yours or similar, what advice would you give them?
So if someone wanted to start a brand like ours, I would definitely say to make sure that they have a unique story and how their brand would be different from what actually exists. Are you actually solving a problem, or are you just fighting on someone else because you just want to be popping too? Um, I also would say like know your audience and like build a community. I feel like a lot of people start brands and they're like, oh, like they have this idea in their head, but and one doesn't solve a problem. But if it does, like they're not focused on building a community at all. And building a community means like actually talking to like the people on your social media platforms, asking like questions and like creating content around like things that they would want to actually see and engage with.
And Lauren, what would you say?
Um, I just say go for it, shoot. But I think everything Merlin said specifically, like making sure that you have a story to tell and that you like everyone can tell the same thing, but what makes yours unique is definitely important. Um, but also as we have kind of found our place in the social media realm over time, I do think it's also just like start it and then also analyze it as you're going. So kind of seeing like what works, what doesn't work, and maybe figuring out what that story is. If you don't truly know. Like, but always keep in mind that you need to figure out like what makes you unique.
Thanks, nice. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that's what separates your page from the others that are out there, and that's for me at least. It's the way that I was able to connect with you, even though I didn't know you. It's I think that it's very important to build that community, and I love what you two are doing. Thank you again for joining. So if you have anything in the future coming up, you can just let the people know. Let people know where they can find you if you have a website or anything.
So I would tell people to make sure they follow us on Instagram and TikTok, and also sign up for our newsletter. It's the most popular newsletter you're gonna have if you're from Brooklyn or visiting Brooklyn. We share about 20 plus events that's happening in Brooklyn upcoming. And then also, if you follow us, you'll see that we're trying to do like monthly happy hours to not only engage with our community but also support businesses throughout the whole Brooklyn.
Thank you again for joining. You can follow us at Evolution Movement NYC on Instagram. And thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Really appreciate it. And like that, we out of here.
Thank you.